Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another week of Wide Open with Ashlyn Harris. I'm so excited today to introduce one of the most iconic goalkeepers of my lifetime of U.S. Soccer Federation, Briana Scurry. Welcome to the show, my friend. Oh my gosh, this is like so fun for me. It's so good to see you.
Ash, great to see you too. Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy we can do this. I'm excited about it, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And not that you need any introduction, but Bri, you might have heard of like Olympics, World Cup. She is like you are known as one of the 99ers. However, like I find that to be it's so funny to even say that because your career and what you've done for the landscape of the position for U.S. soccer in general, you are iconic. So I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today because you have such a legacy of generosity to continue showing up and paving the way for change when it comes to women in sports, especially Black women in sports. And it hits even deeper. And I would hate not to say it now. I am raising a Black female, strong child. And I love that I get to talk to her about you.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
And it is so important. So thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show. How are you? What is going on? I saw you last week, but I'm like, I know what's going on in your crazy life. Like you don't stop, but you tell the listeners and whoever's watching what's going on. Where are you at right now before we dive in to all the juicy questions and have a little fun?
I am in a great place right now. Really just leaning into the bonus mom, being a great wife, being on the road sometimes for business. Right now, I am on the international speakers circuit. So I talk about my journey throughout my life to businesses, Fortune 500 companies, colleges, universities, different organizations. And so doing a lot of that stuff. But some of the things that I absolutely love doing and continuing to do is advocating. Like you said, advocating for mental health, advocating for representation, equity, equality, inclusion, all these things. I feel like it's just something that it's who I am. And I continue to do it, even though I'm not necessarily advocating at that moment for myself personally, but I feel like it's part of what we do now. You know, you're in the mix, and so you're going to do that for the rest of your life. And I'm actually very, very proud of it. And I'm it's a great honor of mine. So
it's so good to see you like in the places that you should be in because you move the needle and you push us forward. And your fucking story is so good. It just is because there's so much beauty and struggle. And you said something to me that was so profound. Oh, whenever it was last week, you were like, just know that little, there's a basement, that dark Black basement. When you're ready, you're going to have to walk through it. And I can't wait to really unpack a lot of those type of topics because I think people don't realize what we go through to get to the top. To stay at the top, and then how quickly it all can crumble.
Yes.
So before we even dive into that whole heavy topic of what we sacrifice to be the greatest versions of ourselves, I'm curious how all the listeners out there exactly who you were as a kid and how you moved in the world and how you played every sport and what were your goals and your dreams and all the things that made your reality possible?
Well, one of the things that is so intriguing about the decisions that my parents made. So we lived in Minneapolis proper, Minnesota, and that's where I was born in the city area. And then when I was roughly 6 or 7 years old, they moved out to the suburbs of Dayton, Minnesota, which is literally 2,000 people, no streetlights, very rural. We were the only family of color in the area. And because of that move, it gave me a lot more opportunity in sport. And so I started playing, different sports. I played volleyball. I played floor hockey, which was really interesting back then. And then when I was in 4th grade, so roughly 10 years old or so, I played tackle football. I was, full pads, helmet, the whole 9 yards. There was only girl in the entire league.
Wow.
And I loved it. Loved it. Oh, when I'm thinking about it now, it's just, I used to sleep with my helmet under my arm. I just absolutely loved it. My dad introduced me to NFL football back in the day when it was only on Sunday afternoon. And they let me play. My mom and dad, I said, I want to play tackle football. And they were like, okay, you can play in the lightweight division. And I did for 2 years. And actually the replacement for when I could no longer play football was football. So soccer came into my life around 12 years old. And I guess the rest is history, as they say.
Well, I guess we can really say that. So you were a part of like the process of really putting women's soccer and women's sports on the map. Like I have heard so many beautiful stories about the sacrifices and the things that you all had to do to really make sure that 99 World Cup was monumental. Like all the fucking hard work was literally before the tournament. Everyone thinks like when you lock into a World Cup, like that is when the stress and the hard work like really hits the peak. And I'm like, not really. Right. Not really.
No,
it's
not at all.
the stuff before it. And you talk so beautifully about it. Did you know the magnitude of what was going to come in that 99 World Cup?
I feel like for me, I understood it to a degree because before the World Cup in 99, we had played in the Olympics in 96. And I wanted to be an Olympian since I was 8 years old. And so for me, seeing that dream become reality in front of 76,000 people in Athens, Georgia. And if you weren't at the game, you didn't see the game because NBC did not cover it at all. So we felt like we had something special. And so when the Women's World Cup organizing committee convened, we were originally going to have that World Cup regional, 2,000 to 5,000 seat stadiums, just on the northeastern part of the country, not a real international flavor event at all. And we decided, you know what, that's not who we are. We can do better. And fortunately, the committee agreed. So we basically, for the next 2 years, so from like 97, 98, we basically went all over the country and connecting with different clubs in different states and having clinics and shaking hands and letting the community see us and inviting them to our World Cup. Because we're going to be, in the United States in 99 and have this tournament. You should come. And sure enough, they showed up. And so the stadiums were changed to Giant Stadium, to Soldier Field, to Palo Alto and the Rose Bowl and all of these different stadiums, even here in DC. And we packed the house for our games. I mean, 76,000, 61,000, 77,000. And it truly was a golden time. But I feel like it grew so fast and so deep compared to what we thought it was going to be, at least in my opinion, for myself, what I thought.
Wow. Yeah. And I think, now as you can sit back and you can reflect, being a Black queer woman in that moment, do you grasp not only the magnitude of what I said you guys accomplished as a team, but you individually? Like I hear it all the time. I remember Crystal Dunn talking about it. The representation that you provided to the world, in my mind, you didn't see it. Did you even place it somewhere for yourself to realize what you were doing in that moment to show little girls that look like you what is possible?
It's so intriguing because it was almost pointed out to me from the outside. Because for me, I was just doing my thing. Like my mom and dad raised me. They were very supportive. They were like, honey, you can do anything you set your mind to. And my dad's words of wisdom were always be first. So I combined those two things together into a predominantly white sport for men also, that soccer was and is. And I was like, you know what? I want to do this and I'm going to take it as far as I can take it. And the cool thing is I had way more than just my mom and dad as support. Over the course of my growing up and my playing, I had great coaches who went to bat for me, who had confidence and faith and saw something in me that was special. And so for me, it only made sense to just show up as the best version of myself, be authentic. And I was just out there and it was like, here I am, you got to deal with me. And I never shied away from the fact that I was gay. All my teammates knew it the entire time I was on the team. I was the only one that was out. And as it turns out, I wasn't the only one that was gay, but I was so
Imagine that.
And I felt like I would do a disservice to myself, to my family, to the people who cared about me if I did not show up 100% authentically me and just live in my dream, and the chips are going to fall where they may. But my soccer playing, I felt like was somewhat anointed because of that. And I had a lot of success. And so when we were in Giant Stadium and playing in front of 76,000 and you had all these current and previous newer players on the national team in the stands as children watching us play, I'm so honored to have been able to be someone that they saw that looked like them, in the case of Crystal, and given her the inspiration that, you know what, I can too. I can do it. She can do it. As a gay woman, also that whole environment back then was not the friendliest environment. I didn't care because I was going to be me. Here I am, deal with me or not, but I'm not going anywhere. And I'm doing my thing. And so I feel like now that I'm retired, and now that I have an opportunity to talk to former players like you and Kristen and Tobin and Abby, I was seen as someone who they looked up to. And for me, that's the greatest honor. I mean, it's one thing to be appreciated and honored by the feelings and the inspiration that I give to younger people, but to have peers, like legit peers on the level, teammates, appreciate you is truly amazing for me.
Well, you also, Bri, you stayed so humble through that entire period. And I can say the thing because I'm unhinged and I don't give a shit. I think if you would have been who you are now, you would have gotten a lot more respect and a lot more fucking money than who you were then. And it's like hard for me to say that, but I'll just say the thing, like you saved that PK to even put that team in the position to be successful. Forget the championship game. Let's go back one game. You wouldn't even be at and that's okay. We're all going to play the humble game a little bit. So let me be your hype woman. Okay. But
I appreciate it.
The semifinal game, like we have this term as goalkeepers, like you stand on your head, like you play out of your mind. I don't even know how many saves you had that game. You might know because you lived it.
A lot.
But then last year, we're like celebrating the 25th anniversary of the 99ers. And here I am. I'm like, ooh, Bri's my favorite. Can't wait for that kit. Can't wait for that kit. And it doesn't fucking come.
No kit.
No kit. Everyone else gets the kit redone, reissued, chic, but not the goalkeeper. And I'm like, when are y'all gonna wake up? We're in 2025 that we still can't even buy goalkeeper kits to support, celebrate, want to like sleep in, you know, as a kid, you're like, I just want to be Rye. You don't even get that opportunity because they're not even selling any of our jerseys.
Right.
But how does that make you feel as someone who has this rich legacy of success and you didn't get what you deserved then, and now you're still not getting the reaps and benefits and rewards of all the fucking work you've put in over decades now?
Oh, there's so much there that you just said. There's so much
I know,
there.
sorry.
I tell you.
Sorry.
No, I know. I know. I love it. I love it. It's very true. So I saw myself as a part of a team when I was playing, and a very, very vitally important part of the team. From my understanding, unless a goalkeeper plays incredibly well on the men's or the women's side, you don't get a championship win. I mean, there's always going to be a time in a tournament where the goalkeeper is going to have to stand or not. And the team that has the goalkeeper that stands is a team that ends up winning. So you're right, in that semifinal game, which is this jersey right here, that's the jersey from that game, because for me, that was the most valuable game I played in. And it had nothing to do with the final of the tournament, but I showed up and earned my keep on that day. And I had no less than 7 emergency saves in that game. I mean, back to back to back, and was awarded player of the game, which I thought was fantastic. And so going forward from there for the final, you know, doing my part, as we all say, like you said, you know, do your thing. So my job was to save one, and all my teammates' jobs was to make one. But getting to that shootout, a lot happened, as you know, back then. That was golden goal, and thank goodness for Christine Lilly heading that ball off the line. So when the moment came for that shootout, you know, I thought after we were done and I made that save, I did my job, and I was so excited and so ready to just see how my life was going to change after that. And it did change, but not nearly as much as I thought. And so for the longest time, I thought, like you said, that it was because I was a goalkeeper. You know, goalkeepers have high level of responsibility, low level of glory. You know, a field player can have 7 chances and miss 5 and be a hero. I can't.
Nope.
You can't. We
Nope.
can't.
Sure
we can't miss any. It can't do it.
Have to be
right?
perfect.
Perfect. Exactly. And so for the longest time, I thought it was the fact that I was a goalkeeper. And then a few years later, I realized that wasn't it at all. It was either the color of my skin, my sexual orientation, or both. And it was really, really sad, Ash, when I realized that, because I had never worried about what I looked like or who I loved or any of that stuff in terms of what I was going to do in my life and what I could achieve and what seeds I'd sow and wait and then have the harvest. But the media was just not ready. The market wasn't ready for me. The market is very much more ready for me now than it was back then. And so now I am someone who is coveted, someone who corporations want to work with, because I can speak to my journey and to things that I learned over the course of many years, being the one on the mountaintop, but also being the one, you know, in the rocks, in the jagged rocks below, having learned from my failures. And so for me now, I feel like I am reaping seeds that I sowed 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, because now it's time. I was way before my time. And I would love a jersey, Nike, thank you very much, would love a jersey, but I feel like that's part of the reason why I keep doing what I do, Ash, but why I keep sharing my journey with mental health, why I keep sharing, you know, my story and things I've overcome and the obstacles and all of that, because I feel like being authentically myself is as important now as it's ever been. And I feel people are listening.
Absolutely. And that's so, that perspective is so beautiful, because, you know, I shared this with you the other day. I feel that I'm in like a weird breakup Like, I'm newly retired, and you and I had very different experiences. Like, I
Yep.
was lucky enough to walk away at 37. Um, I think I held on a little too long because it's so hard to say goodbye to your baby and your life that
Yeah.
you've created that really has changed you for the better. But I really am in this, it's hard for me to watch games. It's hard for me to go to games. I'm in this real reflection moment with a lot of therapy that I'm trying to figure out, like, did I love it? Do I have a lot of trauma from it? Did there's just, I think there's just so much that's loaded in what we do that people only get to see the highs. I know that after the 99 World Cup, all of these things happen, and one podcast, we're never going to get through it, but WUSA came about, was the WUSA, which is a league we were all dying for. It was the possibility that the sport wouldn't be contingent on just every 4 years for an Olympic or a World Cup, because that's how we operated at the beginning. There was
Right.
really nothing in between, but the US team operated like a club team, which we were lucky enough to do so. But this was the real, oh my gosh, this could be a career, like a real job. And then it lasted like 2 years, right? Two
Two and change.
and
Yep.
change, and then it's like you go to the next league and you're in all of these. I'm watching, I'm watching your games and I'm at your games, and I'm just like, this is the coolest thing ever. And boom, you get hit. You get hit, you didn't see it, and it changed your life forever. Tell us about that moment.
Yeah, I mean, similar to like you said earlier about hanging on a little too long, it's hard to know when to exit. And especially when you're in it as an athlete, high level, highest level, you want to do that thing as long as you possibly can because it's part of you. It's not all of you, not all of your identity, but it's a big, huge chunk of it. For me, soccer was anointed on the national team level, internationally for me. I had a lot of success. I had a lot of self-sabotage in there too. I had some things not go my way. I didn't win everything, but boy, I felt good about my body of work, if you will, especially internationally speaking. So when I retired and decided to just play club, I admit my heart wasn't completely in it anymore. My father had passed away in 2004. I just didn't feel the way I felt earlier. And so the irony is that particular day, that morning of that game, I had a weird feeling. And I really couldn't put my finger on it. And I remember sitting on my bed that morning in the hotel, just being like, trying to shake that feeling off. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Something's weird, something's off. But I was trying to just get past it. And sure enough, in that game, I got hit. And that was the last game I played. And so for me, the game left me when it needed to. And I felt it coming. And so when I stood up after getting hit, I knew my life was different, radically different. And unfortunately, at the time, I felt like I could probably still play. And so I did for the next several minutes, and I didn't even come out of the game until it was halftime. And so I'm walking over to my trainer, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like kind of leaning to the left. And I said, "No, I'm not okay." And you know as an athlete if you're okay or if you're not. And there's no messing around with that. And so I was like, you know what, I'm not okay. And it took first a couple of weeks. I took the baseline test over and over again, couldn't pass it, couldn't do it, couldn't remember. Finally passed it because I took a duplicate, didn't say anything, took the duplicate test, finally passed it. And then I realized I was at a point where it was season ending and then it was career ending, pretty much in the same swoop. And so I haven't played soccer since that. That was literally, 15 years ago.
15 years ago.
Yeah, on that journey, Ash, I was so not me anymore. And people will talk about changes that happen when you have a traumatic brain injury. Sometimes that emotional piece gets disrupted. Everything gets disrupted. I mean, you're literally, it feels like you're being unplugged from your energy field, from your life, basically. It affects everything. And so for me, it was a really difficult road, in part because of being misdiagnosed. So back then, the general understanding about concussions was that it just kind of rectifies itself over time. But I struggled, and I knew it wasn't okay. And doctors didn't understand what they understand now. So the misdiagnosis was a big part of it. And then I was descending literally into the depths of an emotional hell.
Yeah.
Each day after day after day. For the longest time, people thought, well, is it because your career's over? Is that why you're depressed? And I'm like, no, actually, that's not why. There's just something really wrong here. I don't feel like myself. I don't think about things like I used to. I'm struggling with trying to focus. I mean, I was able to focus on the panel of a ball in front of 90,000 fans in 107-degree weather in a World Cup final, penalty kick shootout. If I can't focus, there's a problem.
Yeah,
You know
exactly.
what I mean?
Exactly.
And so it was like all this misdiagnosis, the doctors weren't listening to me. And so there's so much wrapped up in there. It's just insane. And so, you know what was part of the thing that healed me was eventually getting to the point where I got the care I needed. Also, that's actually when my wife came into my life, thank goodness. And I don't feel like if I didn't talk about it, if I didn't become an advocate for mental health, for TBI, that's what helped me get through it, was the talking and the sharing and the being vulnerable. I mean, I could tell you I was not nearly as vulnerable before that hit as I've been after it. And that's been a really liberating thing for me. And so the fact that I'm able to advocate, I mean, I was actually in front of Congress with regards to TBI and mental health. That to me, it chose me.
Wow.
And so I have a obligation to share my journey with people, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that they can understand that they're not alone. They can understand that sometimes there's waves. And like talking to you the other day about those dark rooms, that's okay. You're okay having dark rooms. We all have them. But eventually, for self-healing, you're going to have to go in there.
Yep. And I love that you said that. And I've been thinking about this since that conversation. And this is like a real question. And I don't know if you've been asked this, but when did you feel whole enough to go back into those dark rooms?
It wasn't until the prospect of writing a book, which came about in 2019, and I had to sit down with myself and decide one question: am I gonna be real? Or am I not? And if the answer is no, then no book. If the answer is yes, then guess what? You gotta go in that room. Because in order for me to write it, to describe it, to truly get to the feeling place of these incidences that happened that were so painful for me, I have to be willing to go back to that state I was in at the time. And it was the idea of writing a book and wanting it to be truly something that could help people, truly something that was revolutionary, and a body of work that was my magnum opus, is what I called it. I had to be real, Ash. And I am as vulnerable as I've ever been in my life. And it's really freeing, actually. And why is it freeing? Because I'm being authentic. And I'm learning from the difficulties I've had in my life. I am stronger in the broken places.
Yeah, and I love that about you. And I've said this so much, Bri, that I feel more comfort in pain and suffering and hardship and all the things that we were taught young to, that you would think that makes you successful. But being honest, being vulnerable are the ones that never are mentioned when we were younger. And I hope that by having these type of conversations, we give that freedom to young kids when things feel too hard, because I do remember this vision like it was yesterday. I walked off the field and I was having a really hard time with a teammate. And I looked at one of my best friends and I was sobbing on the corner of the locker room. No one could see me. There was these steps and I looked at her and she's like, "What's going on in your head right now?" And I said, "I want to jump off of a bridge. And I am breaking every moment I'm here." And first off, I've never told anyone that story really outside of that moment, but it is interesting because I was scared to share that because I felt weak. I felt like I couldn't handle the hardness of what it took to be great. And I have a lot of trauma from it. And I think that is the dark room when I'm ready. I have to walk in and unpack. And I am nowhere near being whole enough to do it right now. And I just wish I had someone help me be vulnerable and truthful in those moments, that winning really wasn't everything at all cost, because you lose yourself in the process a lot. And then you have to spend decades finding your joy again and your truth. We neglect so much in the sports that we do. And I think we need to really shift the narrative a lot, because it's hard out there. And the pressure at the top, the air is very thin. And it's one thing to get there. It's a whole nother thing to stay there. And you lived it for so long. So with that, I do have a question for you. With all the things that have come with your career, looking back, the struggle, the pain, the mental toll, sacrifice, was it worth it?
I found my greatest love in my greatest pain. My journey has been two sides of the same coin. One side where I've had incredible success and great achievement and accolades and all of this stuff. And the other side is all the pain, all the anger, all the misunderstanding, all the things, the self-sabotage and sabotage from within and without. I walk that fine line every day, still. What I learned was a couple of things. And I so greatly appreciate you sharing with me and being honest about it. Your situation is too hot right now. In time, and it could be years, if you go through, you will come out the other side with a level of appreciation that when you look back on it, it may not be the worst thing that happened in your life. It could transform into the best thing that's ever happened in your life. And that, for me, was one lesson that I learned. But at the time you're in it, which is why the saying, you can't see the forest for the trees, that's what that comes from. When you're in it, you cannot see. And it just seems so weird to say that and to think that. But when you're in it, you cannot see. And it's not going to be until it's far enough in the rear view to even be able to pick it up and look at it. But I will say, there is going to be quite a level of salvation, appreciation, compassion, understanding when you're ready to go through that room. and it all belongs to you. It is yours, and it will always be yours. I'm able to do what I do on stage, speaking about my most difficult moments, because I have some distance from them.
Okay.
There was a long time when I didn't speak about feeling suicidal. And it wasn't until recently, literally the last 2 or 3 years, when I felt more comfortable enough to actually speak about it on stage in a way that would do it justice.
Yeah.
But that time was 2013.
Wow.
That's the year when I felt that way. And it took me over 10 years to get to a point where I didn't feel stupid or weak or ashamed for telling people about the time that I stood on the railing from a waterfall, thinking about going in, knowing I would die because I can't swim. And the thing that kept me from doing that, Ash, is the thought that somebody would have to tell my mother that her baby was dead.
Yeah.
That's what made me step back off
Wow.
of that ledge. And so shortly after that, the deepest, the darkest of times, within the next 6 months, I met who was to be my wife. Right on the backside of that. So that's what I mean about two sides of the coin, right? So when you're ready, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm here for you. I will listen without judgment, without critique, because you're asking for help, and I am willing to do the work with you. And
Thanks,
you will
Bri.
be in that space, not by yourself.
That's beautiful. Thanks, Bri. That means a lot.
Absolutely.
And I will take that with me forever. And I
Absolutely.
do think that's the difference between you and a lot of other people, is your ability to show up. And I do think that is your superpower. Not just standing between the pipes, but your superpower is your ability to show up. And I am so grateful. And I told you the other day, because I wasn't able to share that story with you, which I'll share to everyone. When I played in DC for the Washington Freedom, you would some days show up to the practices and just stand behind the goal at the top of the hill. And that was a really tough time for me. But like, your ability just to show up and support and show that sense of compassion you're speaking about is really life-changing for a lot of people, and is your superpower. And I hope that I will be able to turn my pain into my superpower and my gift, and see the clarity of the pain I've walked in this lifetime to bring me so much joy in this second version, in this second wind, in this second chance at being real and happy and authentic. And with that, I'm curious, because I do ask every person this question on the podcast. What, you've had so many moments that have split you wide open in your life. What moment for you split you wide open that changed the direction of your life forever? That really just constantly you remember that moment that was so meaningful and so impactful?
In 2004, my mom and dad lived in Minnesota, in Minneapolis area, and I lived in Georgia. I was still living in Atlanta. And at the time, the league had folded, but I was still obviously with the national team, and we were traveling around, and my dad was ill. He was very, very sick that year. And I worried about not being able to potentially come home if I needed to in time, if he took a turn for the worse. But the irony was, that's also when we were doing these barnstorming tours where we would play different games against each other in different cities. And we just so happened to be in Minneapolis. And I was staying at home that night because I hadn't seen my mom for a while. And my dad was in the hospital in the ICU. He'd been struggling with his heart. And I remember seeing him that day. And he was sitting on his bed, laying up against the pillow. And he has this way where he has his arm behind his head. And I do the same thing. And he's like, "I'll see you later, honey." And I was like, "Okay, Dad." I'd say around 12:45 a.m., the phone rang. It was the hospital. He had coded, and they said that we have to get there right away. So I went with my mom to the hospital in his room, and we saw him there, and he passed away at that moment. He hung in there long enough. That moment changed my life because as my father passed away, what made me special in the game of soccer passed away with him, at least the way I saw it. However, that incredible pain, and he passed away on Father's Day, made me into an absolute just beast of a goalkeeper for the next several months. And I was in such emotional turmoil. On one hand, I was returning after a long hiatus from the Olympics to be able to play in my first Olympic Games in a while in 2004, and I was excited about that. And then on the other hand, my father passed away, and I was in the room with him, and I had these two emotional balls splitting, pulling me apart. And for the next several months, I would go into the locker room and I would just cry and cry and cry. And bless my teammates, all they would do was just pat me on my shoulder, give me a hug, because they knew why I was crying. I never hid it. They knew what my dad meant. Fortunately, because of that, my mom was able to come to the Olympics that year. And I played out of my mind. I made saves that to this day I can't explain. I had my father's spirit in that game with me. That moment, the fact that I was actually there in the room when he passed is my greatest pain and my greatest joy.
Wow.
Because I was actually in the room. And I never thought I would be. And I changed that day for the better through that really difficult time. And I speak about it sometimes, but not as in depth as I just did. So I want to say thank you to you for allowing me the space to be able to share that with you.
And thank you.
That.
Thank you for your vulnerability in that. And I've always got you. You know that.
Thank you.
There's another thing that you said that's very important for me to talk about because it is impactful in a way that I hope to get to. You said, my greatest save was my own life. How long did it take you to see life this way, Bri? To see all of these things that you've gone through, to be this joyful human you are today. You walk into any room and you absolutely light it up. You are a light. You are magic. You are. And it's such a beautiful thing to say, because you've saved a lot of things and you've saved a lot of people. But you said, my greatest save was my own life. What did you mean by that?
So when I was in the depths of my depression and my difficulty with what I was going through with my concussion, I didn't see myself as me in the mirror anymore. There was a time when I was looking at a picture of myself making that save, and I remember thinking, who is that? I know that's me, but who is that? I felt nothing like that woman who made that save at that amazing time in that amazing way. I did not feel like that person at all anymore. And I hit rock bottom in every single way, shape, or form that you can think of at the same time, to the point where I wanted to just end it. Because of my mom, like I said earlier, I did not. I didn't think I could go much further without something dramatically changing. What changed was this. A very good friend of mine met this woman in an event and told her about my plight, that I was dealing with the insurance company, that they weren't paying me right, that I was really struggling and I needed a certain amount of care, kind of care, type of care, doctors, all these things. That person was Naomi. If Naomi doesn't open her mouth and tell Krissa about my plight, I don't even know if I'd be here now talking to you, because eventually I would have done it. I was saved by love.
Wow.
Love is what saved me. So when I say my greatest save was my own life, it was my willingness to be honest with Naomi, her willingness to do what she does really well, which is network, and tell somebody that she thought could help me about what was happening, and for Krissa to be willing to say yes and to meet with me. And it wasn't until over a year later that we understood how we felt about each other, but that got the ball rolling, got everything started. And so for me, I saved my own life, Naomi saved my life, and Krissa saved my life. And I do what I do now with the passion and the privilege and the energy that I do it with, because I know what a shit show looks like. I've seen it. I've been it.
Yep.
And it's because of that experience and that understanding that I feel like I can help people. And that's why I've chosen to speak like I do and do keynotes, because this is the best way, I think, to reach the most people in an impactful way. And every time I'm on stage, whether I'm talking to a company, Fortune 500, or whether I'm talking to an organization, soccer club, who knows where, Boys and Girls Club, whatever, I go in there with the intention of meeting somebody where they are with my words and being the exact thing they need to hear in that moment to help them be and do what they need to do. And that's why I do what I do.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
The last question I could be here all day with you. You are just,
I know, right?
You're just like you're like a giant, gentle, warm hug every time I'm with you. Gosh. But I will, because you're in such a beautiful place. And I'm so genuinely happy to hear that and to see it. And the last question I want to ask you is this. With where you are now, and you have so much living still to do and love to share, if you could whisper one thing in your ear at that 99 World Cup when you're standing in goal, like a fucking giant you were, and all the things you've gone through and the pain and the controversy and the mental health and the concussion and now finding love on this side, if you could whisper one thing to your younger self in that moment, what would it be?
You have the mind of your father. You have the heart of your mother. Times are going to be incredibly difficult and dark, and you will feel like there is no light. Just hang in there, because the light is coming. And this situation that you feel is heavier than you can carry, you will see in the future that it was your greatest moment.
Wow. Thank you. You
My
are
pleasure.
special. You are special, Bri, and it is an absolute joy to have you on, to call you a friend, to be able to know I can pick this weird thing up and call you at any time and know you've got my back.
Absolutely.
And that I'm grateful for, and I know this will air and this will touch a lot of people who silently are struggling. And this is a message of staying. And it's beautiful because life is beautiful. It's hard, it's challenging, it's unpredictable.
Yeah.
But there's always beauty in it. And you are an incredible testament to that. So thank you for being on today, and thank you for being vulnerable and wide open. And I hope I get to share many more moments and stages with you, because I have a lot to learn from your experience as well. And for you to be so open about it brings me comfort and knowing I don't have to carry the shame either. So thanks, Bri.
Absolutely, Ash. And thank you so much for being willing to put yourself out there and for having me on this show. And we together are going to help a ton of people. And you don't know where things are going to lead or who's listening or who's going to help. But I'm grateful to you for being willing to have me on and sharing this with you. So thank you. And I'm ready when you're ready.
Thanks, Bri. And we'll see you all next week on Wide Open.